can wait another minute. I can wait another second to be with you for an eternity. I feel like I am in a daydream. Every moment that I spend with you, with you.
Won't you take me home and give me wings to fly? We can be alone in a castle in the sky. We can run away and leave this world behind. Please just take me home to a castle in the sky. Castle in the sky. Castle in the sky. Won't you take me
I am the moonlight that breaks through the darkness.
You hurt me, you did, several times. It hurts to admit that we're no different. I find it hard to commit, but you don't even try. Still, I'm better with than without you. Oh,
Welcome to Mobile Legends! 5 seconds till the enemy reaches the battlefield. Smash them! All troops deployed! The way of the arrow. Swift, silent, and precise. Request backup! I can handle that. Watch your back. First blood. An enemy has been slain. I can handle that. Enemy has been slain. Executed. Where do you think you're going? Watch your back. You can't run from my arrow. Where do you think you're going? Killing spree! An enemy has been slain. Wise choice. An enemy has been slain. Killing spree! An enemy has been slain. The way of the arrow. Swift. Mega kill! Mega kill! You can't run from my arrow. Your team destroyed a turret! Your team destroyed a turret!
Forever shine upon us.
Watch your back. Ally has been slain. Where do you team destroy the turret? Watch your back. Unstoppable! Shut down! The way of the arrow. Our turret has been destroyed.
May the moon forever shine upon us.
Double kill! I can handle that. You destroyed the turret! An enemy has been slain! Your team destroyed a turret! Where do you think you're going?
Forever shine upon us. I am the moonlight that breaks through the darkness.
It's a disaster.
Enemy has been slain.
Hey, very nice kick! Give me the ball!
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. You have slain an enemy.
I can handle that.
Enemy has been slain.
Watch that. The way of the arrow. Swift, silent, and precise.
The moon forever shine upon us.
Where do you think you're going?
Ally has been slain.
Wise choice.
You destroyed the turret. You have slain an enemy. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
The way of the arrow.
You destroyed the turret.
I
An
can
ally
handle
has
that.
been slain.
You can't run from my arrow. Wise choice. The way of the arrow. Swift, silent, and precise. Watch your back.
An enemy has been slain. Killing spree.
The way of the arrow. Swift, silent, and precise. You can't
Ally
run
has
from
been
my
slain.
arrow.
An enemy has been slain. Your team destroyed a turret.
I can handle that.
The moon forever shine upon us.
Double kill. An enemy has been slain. You destroyed a turret.
Where do you think you're going?
Monster kill.
Watch your back. I can handle that.
Our turret has been destroyed.
You can't run from my arrow.
Killing spree!
Wise choice. Watch your back. The way of the arrow. Swift, silent, and precise.
Your team destroyed a turret!
Wise choice.
An enemy has been slain! Double kill! Our turret has been destroyed. Our turret is under attack. Executed.
Watch your back.
Legendary! Your team destroyed a turret!
May the moon forever shine upon us.
You can't run from my arrow.
Legendary! An ally has been slain. Double kill!
Where do you think you're going?
May the moon forever shine upon us.
You can't run from my arrow.
Legendary! Double kill!
I can handle that. You can't run from my arrow.
An ally has been slain.
Wise choice.
You destroyed a turret! Legendary! Double kill! Triple kill! Our turret is under attack! Our turret has been destroyed!
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I really want to focus once again on the irony of far left lefties who are always talking about capitalism as an irredeemable system and how they hate corporations and corporate power, and Republicans who want to give corporations tax cuts, Republican corporatists, blah blah blah. You've heard it all, right? But if Republicans are the true corporatists, why is it that corporations actively right now are doing the bidding of the Democrat Party and their phony, despicable propaganda related to election integrity laws that are being passed across the country? The authoritarian left has put themselves in some sort of weird corporate authoritative circle where they use major corporations, billion, trillion-dollar corporations, to do their bidding and to push their propaganda. It's weird. Anti-corporatist, anti-corporation, anti-establishment, at least that's what they claim, anti-capitalist Democrats are fighting their battle alongside the little guys, aren't they? You know, the little guys like Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, the MLB. These people are ridiculous, and it's just another step of leftist authoritarianism using institutions of power to bludgeon their political opponents. Let me show you guys what I mean. And now, Joe Biden is the tip of the spear, egging it all on. We got a lot to get into, but before we do, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so here we go. Biden says he'd strongly support MLB moving All-Star Game over GA election law. Athletes acting incredibly responsibly like in the NBA. Check this out.
I'd like to switch gears quickly, Mr. President. Sports and politics cross paths sometimes. That's exactly what happened last week in Major League Baseball. Tony Clark is the executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association. He said he would, quote, look forward to discussing moving the All-Star Game out of Atlanta because Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signed into law a bill passed by the Republican-led state legislature to overhaul how its state elections are run. So, Mr. President, what do you think about the possibility that baseball decides to move their All-Star Game out of Atlanta because of this political issue?
I think today's professional athletes are acting incredibly responsibly. I would strongly support them doing that. People look to them. They're leaders. Look at what's happened with the NBA as well. Look at what's happened across the board. The very people who are victimized the most are the people who are the leaders in these various sports. And it's just not right. This is Jim Crow on steroids, what they're doing in Georgia
I think today's professional athletes are acting incredibly responsibly. I would strongly support them doing that. People look to them. They're leaders. Look at what happened with the NBA as well, as they took political stances and lost millions upon millions of dollars. They're not acting responsibly. They're acting like shills pushing your phony narrative. Absolute phony narrative when it comes to election integrity laws in Georgia and other states. I mean, it's gotta be phony. If the Washington Post gives Joe Biden 4 Pinocchios for false GA voting law narrative, election day hours were not changed. President Joe Biden advanced a false narrative about Georgia's new election integrity law, claiming that it reduces voting hours, thereby compromising the ability of working class Americans to go out and vote. This is a clear falsehood, as the law does not change election day hours and actually expands access for early voting, as the establishment media outlet The Washington Post pointed out in a fact check, giving the commander-in-chief 4 Pinocchios. He should have got 25 Pinocchios for just how morally egregious a claim like that is, but all of their claims are complete bogus. We're talking about fundamentally sound, logical election changes and reforms to secure the integrity of elections, and the Democrats are crying racism and voter suppression as they implement their, of course, slanderous tactics that you'd expect them to be pushing in the first place. And not only is the Washington Post fact-checking Joe Biden with 4 Pinocchios, but Jen Psaki got confronted big time during the most recent press conference on the exact same idea.
One other subject, in Georgia, talking about the voting bill that was just signed from the governor, community organizers have threatened boycotts on big companies like Delta, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, in part from some of the information that's come from the president. In his last news conference, he said that the bill requires voting to end early at 5 p.m. And you've said, and some others said, that words matter. The bill actually standardizes voting hours by counties and adds Saturdays and Sundays voting, and it also allows extended hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So is there going to be a correction
It
issue?
standardizes the ending of voting every day at 5, right? It just gives options.
7 to 7 is what
it gives options to expand it, right? But it standardizes it at 5. It also makes it so that outside groups can't provide water or food to people in line, right? It makes it more difficult to absentee vote. Are those things all correct?
Voting on the day of is 7 to 7, and early voting can standardize adding Saturday and Sunday. So my question is the tone going to change out of the White House? Or
the tone for a bill that limits voting access and makes it more difficult for people to engage in voting in Georgia?
No, that's actually not what the governor of Georgia has said.
Well, I think that is not based in fact what the governor of Georgia has said. So no, our tone is not changing.
Look how disingenuous she is. Once again, a deer caught in the headlights, like we always say when it comes to Jen Psaki. And she cites a bunch of things in the bill that are not voter suppression. She pretty much refused to admit that the bill itself expands access to early voting. Said a bunch of things about 5 p.m. and changing times. None of it really makes sense if you actually read the bill. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She says outside groups are not allowed to hand water and food, as if that's a bad thing. As if coercing people and having people handing actual goods and things of value while people are waiting in a line to vote, as if activist groups are just supposed to be allowed to go there and coerce people by handing them things to persuade them to vote a specific way, as if that's voter suppression, to have the law against that. And then citing that they're making it harder to mail in a ballot, aka voter ID required for a mail-in ballot, of course to avoid the absolute cluster F that we saw last year, once again as if that's a bad thing or voter suppression. The Democrats have no argument. They have no ground to stand on, and Jen Psaki basically proved it with just how incoherent her response was when challenged on the Democrat narrative. Joe Biden referring to GA election laws as Jim Crow era voter suppression. They are lying. Every single Democrat is lying, and you have these corporations that are falling in line pushing the exact same narrative. Delta CEO says Georgia voting law is unacceptable. He released this statement right over here. After having time to now fully understand all that is in the bill, coupled with discussions with leaders and employees in the Black community, it is evident that the bill includes provisions that will make it harder for many underrepresented voters, particularly Black voters, to exercise their constitutional right to elect their representatives. That is wrong. That's an empty Democrat rhetoric platitude. And the question that I ask is, what are you referring to specifically? The Delta CEO says, after having time to fully understand what's in the bill, coupled with discussions with leaders, employees in the Black community, I now understand that it's voter suppression. But what are you referring to? Treating people who understand what's in the bill and who have read it like me and other people who are actually paying attention, what are we missing in that bill that's clear voter suppression? Voter ID is clearly not voter suppression, as 70% of even black people within the black community, agree that it's not racist and just makes sense logically. Expanding early voting, is that racist? Requiring voter ID for mail-in ballots and early ballots? Not racist. Changing the system so that votes can be counted or at least organized and tabulated before the actual election day so that the results are given on election night, is that racist? No, none of it is racist. None of it is voter suppression. But the Delta CEO, of course, is going to push the Democrat narrative. Why? Because who do you think is willing to throw taxpayer money without even thinking to massive corporations who do their bidding when they need it? It's the Democrats. Who's going to bail out the airlines after what happened in 2020? It's the Democrats, the corporate, corrupt, crony, establishment Democrats who say, scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, aka lie for us, push our phony narrative, or else is kind of what it feels like. And once again, we're seeing the Democrats do exactly that, playing around with taxpayer money like it's monopoly money. Joe Biden to tax American business at higher rate than communist China. And Joe Biden came out and said that it's going to make America more competitive in the global economic stage than China, to tax corporations into oblivion. Corporations that will probably swiftly move to China and Mexico and other countries as this stuff is implemented. They've lost the plot, folks. And speaking of losing, not only have they lost the plot, but they're just losing in general. Michigan GOP could pass election integrity law without Democrat governor's approval. Of course, knowing what happened in the 2020 election and understanding the fact that most legislative chambers across the most important electoral states are Republican controlled, here's a map that was released by 538, visualizing bills, election integrity bills that are being passed across the most important key states. Notice, it's all red circles. And as you see right over here, it says most bills filed in Democrat-controlled legislative chambers, like many in the Northeast, are largely dead on arrival. Georgia enacted a sweeping law restricting absentee voting and more. And so the Democrats are losing across the country. This is why we're seeing them get desperate and employ their age-old tactic of calling everything racist and trying to slander their opponents and what they're trying to do. This is why they're so desperate to use corporations as a weapon, a political weapon, to boycott and attack their political opponents. They want to pull the MLB All-Star Game out of Atlanta. They're forcefully trying to get Coca-Cola to start condemning Republicans and pushing their political rhetoric. Delta Airlines, the exact same thing, and probably more corporations within the next couple of weeks are going to join in as the Democrats use their political might and pressure to get them to do their bidding. The Democrats are desperate because the Democrats are losing. And this is why 2022 is so absolutely important. They don't have legislative chambers and they don't deserve the House or the executive branch, period. Because we're seeing what they do when they get an inch of power, they try to take a mile. And they seem to have absolutely no limits to the depths that they will go to preserve and protect and expand their grasp on power in the first place. Something we've spoken about and analyzed for months, and we're seeing it play out in front of our very eyes in the most despicable of fashion. Leftist authoritarianism is a trend historically across the globe, and you can see the psychology playing out in front of you as to exactly how it starts. And one thing we know how it ends, and we definitely do not want to go there now, do we? But that's the video that I got for you guys on this one. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers to the tune of 90 to 95% depending on the upload. YouTube is not recommending our videos to new viewers, of course, so just share the video with people who might not be a part of the community. But now with that out of the way, I want to thank you guys who have been sharing the videos. I gotta get back to work though. I want to thank you for watching as well, and I'll see you on the next one.
Says fully vaccinated people can resume domestic and overseas travel as long as they wear masks. Those folks don't need a COVID-19 test before or after traveling either. They will not need to self-quarantine afterward as well. This as long as they follow public health measures wherever they are going. We'll also have more on COVID and the vaccine passports coming up. But we start in Georgia today, where Republicans this week passed a bill to repeal a tax break. Election bill is getting a similar treatment from the left and the media. It all sounds very familiar. Again, people are claiming that handing out food and water to voters in line will become illegal. Now, here's what the bill actually does. It increases the distance from the polling site at which voters can be solicited. Now it's 100 feet, but Florida Republicans want to make it 150 feet. Check out this headline from Politico. Quote, Florida may restrict offering food and water to voters near polling places. It's the same lie which was repeated over and over about the Georgia voting law. But the lies about these new voting laws, designated to secure your vote, don't stop there. They go all the way to the White House. Here's Press Secretary Jen Psaki talking about her false claim that voting hours in Georgia were cut.
It standardizes the ending of voting every day at 5, right? It just gives options.
7 to 7 is what
it gives options to expand it, right? But it standardizes it at 5. It also makes it so that outside groups can't provide water or food to people in line, right?
But
it makes it more difficult to absentee vote. Are those things all correct?
Now, I thought the press was supposed to be asking the press secretary the questions there. She seemed to be asking all the questions. She was wrong, by the way. Also, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution had to issue a major correction as well. Quote, a previous version of this story, which was about the voting rules, said the new law would limit voting hours. On Election Day in Georgia, polling places are in fact open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you are in line by 7 p.m., you are still allowed to cast your ballot. Nothing in the new law changes those rules. Of course, you probably haven't heard that if you've been watching a lot of the other coverage or maybe reading newspapers like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Now, they also have falsely reported on the election law, again, limiting hours. That was in a story first. Falsely reported again, that was included with Tyler Perry, a famous filmmaker who's also talking about these changes. All right, here with us to talk more about this and get to the bottom of everything, Democratic Georgia State Representative Vernon Jones. He's also the founder of Waking Up America. Mr. Jones, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. As Mark Twain once said, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And then, you know, the modern version, Vernon, is there are lies, damn lies, and there are stories about these Georgia voting laws. All the media seems to be doing this, you know, saying it's illegal to give people food and water while they're waiting in line, which is not true. They're doing the same thing now with this Florida voting bill.
Well, let me add one to that. There's head lies, too. That's all they've been doing, putting these headlines out.
Right.
You and I both know that this is all about the left scaring black people, getting them riled up for the 2022 election, giving them the impression that Republicans are trying to keep them from voting through voter suppression. And it's to me, it's offensive to say that black people cannot have an ID or afford an ID or need their hands held to go and vote by liberals. It is just, it's offensive. It goes back to Margaret Sanger thinking that black people, who was a Democrat, by the way, that black people were really defected and they needed to be weeded out like weeds. The real Jim Crows are the Democrats. As a matter of fact, for Joe Biden to say what he said, the laws are more restrictive in Delaware than they are in Georgia. But that's why I always refer to him as Joe Crow, because he is part of that whole connection with Democrats trying to keep black people from independently thinking for themselves and making them feel like they're victims, that they cannot even vote now. But you need an ID card to do what? Go to the hospital, to check in a hotel, to buy certain beverages. You need an ID for many things. And guess what? To even get the COVID shot. So when I hear this, this is a high-tech way of, again, the left using Stacey Abrams to get black people riled up to stay on the plantation. That's all this is. They are lying, no more, no less. You just busted them when you just pointed out what the law actually says.
Well, we saw the pandering that seems to run within the Biden family yesterday with Dr. Jill Biden having a little trouble with her Spanish pronunciation of yes, we can. But we saw previously, too, in years before, President Biden, then Vice President Biden, you know, that line about how Republicans want to keep y'all in change. This is more of that. This is the same talking point, the same kind of narrative that we've heard them perpetuate for years now. Really. So Delta, Coca-Cola, Citibank, they all want to cancel Georgia now. And now Apple CEO Tim Cook is joining in. He says it should be easier for everyone to vote. But do you think any of these CEOs, Vernon, have actually read the law?
They haven't read it. Their staffs haven't read it. But you know what? They're getting the pressure from Stacey Abrams and all the left and George Soros. They're literally calling them up. They're literally having people across the country, just Joe Citizen, calling their offices, flooding their offices, giving the impression that this is hurting black people. Now, I look at the Major League Baseball. They're supposed to maintain and look at statistics. Why don't they look at the bill themselves? when you want to start talking about moving or boycotting the master and taking master out of Augusta, we need to take the master, the slave master, actually, out of what? The Democratic Party. And Coca-Cola, think about it. They were recently busted for doing what? Telling white employees to be less white.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Now, what if somebody were to say, or to tell black people to be less black? Black people would lose their mind, and they would call them racist and bigots and all of that. Why aren't we calling Coca-Cola's executive team right now, the same ones who want to talk about this Jim Crow bill? They are Jim Crows. They are Jim Crows themselves, wanting white people to act less white. That's outrageous.
Let's talk about 2022. It's expected to be a rematch, at least for the governor's race, between Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp, the current governor. Governor Kemp joined us on Monday to talk about the new voting law. Here's what he had to say, though, about President Trump.
I've been a strong supporter of the president. I work very hard for him. I believe in his policies. I think we're seeing that contrast right now. You know, for all those people that are out there that are saying, well, you got to have it one way or another, I disagree with that. I think this is a great opportunity for the Republican Party to come together.
So he thinks it's a great opportunity for the Republican Party to come together. You know, you used to be a Democrat, Vernon. You're now a Republican. There's some rumors about you potentially running for governor as well. But I wanted to get your reaction to Governor Kemp there saying he's been a strong supporter of President Trump. Do you see it that way?
Well, he's $1 late and a day short, and I'll tell you why. If he was a big supporter of President Trump's, why did he allow, he and the Secretary of State, Stacey Abrams, to cut a backroom deal to create this mail-in fraud? He could have stopped it. He could have called a special session. He didn't. He failed the president. How many times was he actually out there on the campaign trail with the president, whether the president was here or not? I don't recall. Only time I saw him was a few times when the president would show up, he'd give a speech and leave. I've never seen him hold a rally on his own for the president. How many times did he go to Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Arizona campaigning for this president? No, he didn't. And to say that, I think it was disingenuous. Now, let me be clear about one thing. Donald Trump is the Republican Party. And all of a sudden now, when they thought he was going to be taken out and the dust has settled, Donald Trump is stronger now than ever before. Do you really think Donald Trump believes that Brian Kemp has been supportive of him?
I don't know. I'd love to ask him. I'd love to ask him that question point blank and get his response to that same statement, but we'll have to hold off on that. Vernon, I want to ask you about your interest in running for governor in 2022, maybe even running for Senate as well.
Well, let me be clear. I have, and I am currently pursuing, doing my due diligence, looking at the governor's race, talking to voters across this state, small businesses, teachers, individuals, young people, farmers, factory workers, those who work in corporate America, those in healthcare. I want to hear what they're saying, what they're feeling, what they want. And I can tell you it's been consistent. They want someone who would fight for them. They want someone with courage. They want someone who will not back down or back off. And they know that I'm a fighter, and they like that. And obviously, we're getting very, very good feedback. But I haven't made that decision. I will be making that decision very soon. And you never know. Next time you see me, you may be feeling the Vern.
All right, feeling the Vern. I like it. That makes a great bumper sticker. You know, you'd be the first black governor in the history of Georgia. That would be quite an accomplishment. So we'll see what happens. Stay in touch with us. State Representative Vernon Jones, great to see you, sir.
Well, I don't want to be the first black Republican governor. I want to be the first effective governor as a Republican.
Well, I bring that up because Democrats love to tout that stuff, but, you know, you could be in contention, too. So we don't want to miss that point. Great to see you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Stay in touch. All right, President Biden proposes a $2 trillion infrastructure package, but how much is actually going to fix, you know, real infrastructure, things like roads and bridges and our ports and airports? And how much is actually just a grab bag of progressive dreams? We'll talk about that next. WHO Director Dr. Tedros did something we haven't really seen him do before. He criticized China in explicit terms. He confirmed that the CCP also withheld data from WHO investigators who traveled to China to research the origins of the coronavirus. The final report from the WHO investigation team was written jointly with Chinese scientists. It says that the virus had most likely been transmitted from some other animal to humans, and that a lab leak or human error was, quote, extremely unlikely. Dr. Peter Hibbard joins us now to talk more about this. Great to see you as always, Dr. Hibbard.
Excited to be here. Thank you, John.
All right, so Dr. Tedros saying that data was withheld. This is pretty significant considering the WHO's dependency on China and China's influence over the WHO.
Extremely so, John. Remember, last month there was an infectious disease specialist, also a member of the team that went out there, Dr. Dwyer, who indicated that the data that they were submitted, or at least requested, even for December of 2019, that's the 1 month before we came to our country in 2020, they requested the raw data from December 2019, and they were refused it. They were only provided summaries. So they were given inadequate information from the very get-go, and misinformation, in my opinion.
So the question remains, Dr. Hibbert, how are we going to ever find out the actual root cause of the coronavirus? A lot of people believe that it was either purposefully or accidentally leaked out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. China definitely has, an interest in making sure that information doesn't ever get out there. Are we ever going to really know?
Well, there's been such a huge cover-up. There's been such a large length of time between and betwixt. And I think if you take a look at the reaction that the Chinese government and population took to this very early on, before we even had it over here, and you take a look at the spraying in the streets and the quarantine in building and the yanking of families out to quarantined areas, they knew a lot more then than they ever let out. And even now, they knew more then than they're telling us now.
Well, we keep getting led around in circles from China here. You wonder at what point the world really gets angry. Dr. Tedros speaking up, significant. We'll see if this is the first of a series of comments he's going to make, that China, I'm sure, doesn't want him to make. And we'll have to see, too, what China's response is. Dr. Hibbert, we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John.
All right. Well, only 1/3 of President Biden's $2 trillion infrastructure package actually goes to roads and bridges and ports and rail systems, the stuff that actually constitutes infrastructure. The other 2/3 goes towards funding progressives' wish list of pet projects. And everyone on the left and a lot of folks in the media are excited. They are running around on a sugar high. The project you see here on the screen all contain elements of the Democrats' corporate cronyism, progressive elements of the Green New Deal. They favor Silicon Valley and public sector unions. And, of course, there seems to be a lot in here that China can like. President Biden also wants to undo the Trump tax cuts and then wants the rich to pay for it. So unlike Willy Wonka, who spent his own money at his sugar factory, President Biden is gambling with our money. Let's talk about this with GOP strategist and Newsmax columnist John Burnett. John, great to see you again.
Good to be here.
Been too long since we talked. I thought we should check in on this and Joey Wonka's progressive factory, all the things in this quote-unquote infrastructure bill. But considering only 1/3 is actually going towards things like roads and bridges and railways and ports and airplanes and things like that, why are they calling it an infrastructure package, John?
Well, when we look over the last 60 days or so, the Democrats, what they've done is play word games. They call a bill one thing, but they stuff it with something else. We saw that with the COVID relief bill. Approximately only 9 to 10% actually went to COVID. So a lot of times these bills under the Democratic leadership is too large and too ineffective. Yeah. And the situation is that we're spending a lot of this money that hasn't even been printed yet, right? And allocating it toward a wish list. The thing is that going forward, we need bills that actually have a fiscal nutrition label, right? Letting us know how much fat is in it.
Sort of like what they want to do with kids' school lunches. I mean, let's talk about what we think are the 5 most ridiculous examples of the progressive agenda that's buried deep down in the infrastructure bill. Sort of reminds me of some of those shovel